Welcome to the Hockey Writers Prospect Corner, a show with our top prospects writing crew, bringing you the latest news, analysis, scouting reports, mocks, rankings, and much more. From the World Juniors to the NHL draft floor, from the farm to the NHL, our team covers everything that happens in the world of prospects. So sit back, grab a notebook, and get ready for Prospect Corner.
Hello, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of Prospect Corner here at the Hockey Writers. I'm your host, Matthew Zator, and as always, I am joined in by the prospect experts here at the Hockey Writers, Peter Baracchini and Dayton Reimer. Peter, welcome back to the show. We've missed you for the last 3 weeks, I think. Two,
3
weeks.
Maybe, yeah.
It's been 2 episodes, so 2 weeks.
Yeah.
How's it going?
Going good. You know, a couple of stressful weeks personally, but everything is in the rear view mirror and looking forward. So that's all that matters at this point. We're all A-okay at this point, so that's all that matters.
Yeah, for sure. So yeah, glad to have you back. We're going to talk about a bunch of different things today. So how's it going, Dayton?
Still pretty good. I always mention the weather, so I'll keep doing that. It's sunny. It's warm. There's hardly any snow anymore. Thank goodness.
Yeah,
I was about to say, get the sensor ready there.
I'm very excited for not having snow
Oh,
anymore.
yeah.
Oh, I'm sure.
Yeah,
Yeah,
now, of course I jinxed it because
weather
in Saskatchewan.
For sure. Yeah, so we're going to talk about, let's start with something that just came out not that long ago. And this is a pretty big thing because not many players get this. It's exceptional status. In the WHL, for sure, not many at all. Connor Bedard was the first one. Now we got a second one. And this is be the first defenseman granted exceptional status by Hockey Canada to enter the WHL. And that's Landon DuPont, son of Mickey DuPont, who played in the NHL he's probably been a while. It's been a while since he's been in the NHL, but now his son has been granted a pretty big thing to enter the WHL at age 15. That'll be next season. He can play in the WHL. I'll start with you, Peter. What do you think about DuPont getting this honor? It is an honor to be able to go into the league this early. What do you think about all that?
Yeah, I mean, there was some chatter leading up to the news that, you know, it was more or less likely that it was going to happen because of the season that he put up in the CSSHL, you know, as a 15-year-old right now, putting up, you know, the type of numbers that he has. Sorry, 14-year-old.
14,
going to be,
yeah.
coming up to 15. He is going to be 15, but, you know, the 62 points in 30 games for a 2.07 point per game average, third overall in that league. And, you know, this is a guy that's dominating the competition at such a young age, and he's besting his peers that are, you know, older than him. And that is the main thing that you want to see in a player. That is why you get granted exceptional status. Is he able to handle himself in higher competition? Is he able to, you know, show off the skill set that makes him a lethal threat every single time? And especially for a defenseman too, for his, you know, skill set, the puck mobility, the smarts, the speed, the skating. It's almost like he's built for this modern NHL type style from the back end, where you have the likes of Quinn Hughes, Cale Makar, you know, some players that he idolizes and mentions that he, you know, admires in terms of their game. This is big. And you know what? Obviously, Bedard is Connor Bedard. Different situation, different player because he was a forward, but for a defenseman to get this honor, it's very rare because it's only happened twice, and only one of those players has found, you know, a consistent home in the NHL, and Aaron Ekblad. So here's a hoping that Landon DuPont has a very successful WHL career, OHL career, because he's definitely got a lot of upside and offensive potential from the back end.
Yeah, and entering the WHL, which is tougher on a lot of players, and defensemen, they seem to churn out a lot of defensemen in the WHL, and DuPont getting in there, he's probably, like you talk about with Quinn Hughes, he's 5'11" right now. I'm 5'11", 170 according to Elite Prospects. So I mean, he's about the same height as Hughes. Actually, I think the same height because Hughes I think is 5'11".
Yeah. And he's younger and he's still growing.
Yeah, right. And he's a right-hand shot as well, so that's going to be even better for a future. Dayton, what do you think about Landon DuPont getting exceptional status and what the future could hold for him?
I think it's definitely deserved. The only two guys who outscored him in the under 18 league were 17 years old. So that's a pretty special player. At 14 years old, already standing 5'11", that's pretty much taller than I am. Whether I'd like to admit that or not, but it's close. I can say it's close. No, I think he's got a really great future. I don't know who's got the first overall in the WHL. Have they decided that yet?
I believe it's Everett.
Everett.
Everett. Yeah. Okay, well, that'll really boost up Everett's chances in the future then. That's great for them because he's going first overall. I don't see how he couldn't. Especially if you get somebody for that extra year. That's huge in junior leagues. So, no, I'm really excited to see what he does in the WHL, and I'll be paying very close attention.
Yeah, I mean, next season he's going to be in the dub, so that's going to be exciting. And Everett will probably pick him. I mean, who else pick? This guy's already generating a lot of hype. You mentioned Bedard, Peter, about that. It's kind of, you don't want to compare the two because they're different positions, different players completely. But Bedard was generated a lot of hype going into his draft year. Not that, I mean, even a couple years before the draft, around this time is when he was granted exceptional status as well. And, the hype was just off the charts. DuPont won't be able to be drafted until 2027. That's a ridiculous amount of years ahead, but we're already seeing it. Is he going to generate as much hype as Bedard, being that generational talent? Yes, defenseman. I mean, Aaron Ekblad generated quite a bit of hype going into his draft year, but definitely not as much as Bedard did. Do you see that, or is it just going to be maybe a first overall pick? There are some other players that are probably going to emerge too, but he's definitely an early front runner.
Yeah, this is kind of like the same debate that we have with Macklin Salabrini. Is he generational? Probably not in the sense. You don't want to constantly throw that label out, especially for a 14-year-old. But we have 3 years to, see what DuPont can do, and this is going to be absolutely exciting to see him take that next step. I mean, if he was able to carry over what he did against, U18s, like 16, 17-year-olds he's besting them, and he's able to translate it to that next level, I think that's going to be huge, and it's going to be very, very great for him. As for, I don't know if he'll generate as much hype as Bedard. No one could generate as much hype as Bedard. Not even Connor McDavid. I think those are the only two players that you really can't argue against. But he is going to get a lot of talk. There is going to be a lot of hype around him. As for generational talent, really don't know. If you're looking in terms of overall defense, maybe. But, because there's also, Cale Makar really didn't get exceptional status either. And, he's putting up points like it's nobody's business on the back end. So can we call him maybe a generational talent on defense for Makar? Absolutely. Can Landon DuPont match that type of production or match what's going to happen in the near future as well? We'll see, but I don't want to jump to that conclusion just yet, but he's going to be a definite bona fide first pairing defender with superstar, all-star type caliber possibility or projection. I think that's what we're all going to see or give him that as now. But yeah, again, if he's able to tear it up in his first season, I mean, then it's really going to speak for itself.
Yeah. I mean, for reference, Sean Day, who's the other defenseman that was granted exceptional status, he was a 3rd-round pick in 2016. Yeah. So, I mean, it's not given that they get this exceptional status. They're going to be a first overall pick, and be a 1st-round pick. We'll see. I think DuPont's definitely a 1st-round pick. But he's 14. There's so much development he's still got to do. Maybe we're jumping the gun. At least I am, because I was the one that crafted this question. But it's a pretty big thing to do what he's doing and being able to. The WHL, this is what I mean about the WHL, is a tough league for defensemen That's
Very
why I
tough.
think he, being granted into this league is different than being put into the OHL, which is what Day was and Ekblad. So it's going to be interesting to see what he can do. Dayton, what do you think about his potential? Is it I don't, maybe generational isn't the wrong word, but is he going to be like a star first round pick type guy?
I'd like to think so. It's so tough to know when they're 14 years old, right? So like they look really good right now. But then you also have examples like Sean Day, who also looked really good when he was 14 years old, right? Some other exceptional statuses that we know of, Connor McDavid, obviously.
Yeah.
He kept it up. Aaron Ekblad kept it up. He had that really big size that helped him succeed in, OHL. Barry, that was the one that drafted him. John Tavares, another exceptional status. Michael Misa looks pretty good. But you also got Shane Wright, who hasn't gone crazy yet. You got Joe Veleno, who also, he was a late first round pick. So it's not even guaranteed that exceptional status will get you first overall. There's there's a number of examples already. So while I think he should become a first overall or a first round pick, and Everett is a great place for him to develop. He'll have lots of chances to develop slowly, I guess. They're going to have a pretty experienced defense next year. And it looks like most of their guys are eligible to return. They've got a very good decor. So, yeah. That's a very long way of answering. I don't think the hype is a Bedard level. I don't think anyone's hype is a Bedard level.
No.
That's that exceeded logic.
Yes, that's true. That's true.
Like, little personal note, I collect hockey cards, so I get to see kind of what is being bought and what's popular. And the minute a Bedard rookie card comes out, everyone's losing their minds. And they're looking for the next guy who's going to be that, right? Oh, let's try to get all the Gavin McKenna junior cards that we can. And they're trying to charge hundreds of dollars for that card. Like, he's not Bedard. He's never going to be. You guys are wasting your money. If you bought a McKenna card, anyone listening, for $100, I'm sorry to have to tell you, but that value's not going to hold. He's going to be excellent. He might go first overall, but I would just temper my expectations a little bit. I hope he's a first pairing. I think definitely a second pairing. But I really want to see what he does first. Like, let's see that rookie season. Let's see how he adapts to a very tough league, especially for defense. And then I'll go from there. I'm not on the hype train quite yet.
Yeah, I mean, granted exceptional stats, he has been, he's been in the news a lot lately. So it is a big deal. So I mean, most of the names that we went through, they've all been really good. I mean, only Sean Day has played. He's played in the NHL, but just not very much. He's played, 2 games in the NHL so far. So I mean, I think he's the only one that's really been not much yet. So I mean, pretty much you can say they're probably going to be NHL players. So that's going to be a definite. So we'll see. I think it's going to be very interesting to see what he can do next season. For reference, Ekblad had 29 points in his first season. Day had 16. So, I mean, they didn't blow anyone out. I mean, even Ekblad didn't go crazy in his first year. I mean, 29 points is decent. But we'll see. I mean, like you said, he's going to a pretty good team, most likely, in Everett, which has a pretty good defense. He won't be set to be a star there, and he'll get some good support. So, overall, I think he's going to go to a good spot. All right, let's move on to our recurring segment here. And Peter, this will be your first time going through this 2024 draft profiles, and we're doing these profiles of the week. We've had a couple weeks, so I'll start with you, Peter. A draft profile you want to feature that has been published on the website so far?
I would love to have gone back and give like my take for the last 2 weeks, but you know what? Past is in the past. Can't do it. I am going to start it off with probably one of my later potential first round picks from Stefano Rubino, and that's EJ Emery. His profile recently just dropped today, or on the 9th, if this gets posted later, so we know the day of when it happened, timestamp. Yeah, I've become a really big fan of EJ Emery's game. Obviously when you look at his stats on the surface, you look at 6 points in the USHL, 11 with the national development team, 17 points overall in the games that he's played. But you know what? There's more to his game than just the points. And, obviously he's generated assists, which is good because his passing is one of his strengths. Breakouts, quick cross-ice passes, finding the seams from the blue line. He has the IQ and awareness to make those kind of plays. And I think his transitional game is, pretty decent. And it's one that could probably translate to offense once he gets those opportunities, probably at the next level. Obviously with defensemen, it is definitely going to take some time, but the hallmarks are there for Emery because of his skating, because of his defensive awareness, gap control, stick positioning, anything like that. He breaks up plays and he quickly transitions to that with the offensive capabilities that he has. And if he's able to grow with his production and his offensive game, you're looking at a very solid two-way threat because he already has that defensive game already down. And if he's able to, generate a little bit more offense, he could be extremely valuable. So he's basically the whole entire package within his own zone and in the neutral zone. If he can take that next step offensively, I think it's going to be great. So he's going to be my prospect profile of the week. I'll call myself there.
There you go. It works. Yeah, that's a good one. That one dropped today as we're recording. So very recent. So there you go. Right, over to you, Dayton. Who's your third prospect profile of the week?
All right, I'm going to take one of my, I guess, favorite underrated first round picks. This one came out the 4th, again, by Stefano Rubino. That was unintentional. But hey, if he's writing them, then
there you go.
Great. So that with Michael Hage. Hage?
Yeah.
Look that up.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
What is it? Sorry,
Michael Hage.
Hage. Okay.
Yeah.
So he is my prospect of the week. He is a center with the Chicago Steel, and he is such a nice skater. Mm-hmm. I loved watching the clips of him when I was putting together my own ranking. He can do so many things at top speed, and yet he's always so in control. Like, it's just his top speed is everyone else's like regular speed, if that makes sense. He's just so smooth and so controlled when he skates. He uses his edges really well. He controls the puck really well when he's moving so fast. He can just like change direction, like on a dime, really. He's moving all over the ice and remaining very fast and also very much, in control of everything around him. The only problem is he's on the slider side. Like, he's still 6'1", 190, but he looks smaller on the ice, which I think can kind of give a misrepresentation of kind of how good he is. And an injury kept him off the ice for most of last season, which kind of slowed his development a little bit. But he is doing amazingly well in the USHL, and that should translate to the NCAA. Yeah. No, I think that's all I got to add. Yeah, I think he is definitely a consideration for the late first round. I have him in my ranking as 20th, which is maybe a little higher than most, but I just think he is so talented. He's so slick, and I'm going to be honest, any really smooth skater wins in my books. I love watching a good skater.
Yeah, I love good skate too. I mean, that's why I love watching Quinn Hughes. He's just Oh my gosh. I could watch that guy skate all day. He's just amazing. Yeah, Hage is a very good skater. I think, I mean, he will probably be a first round pick. Later first round, so a playoff team's going to get this guy. And that's just in a first round that doesn't have a lot of forwards. That's definitely he's going to be good. So that it's a good profile to highlight.
The big thing was also his production as it progressed throughout the season, because he popped off towards the end of the season at a better point production clip than what it was at the beginning of the season. Like every step of the season, like every single interval or like milestone of the season, he's gotten progressively better, and he was being very dominant.
Yeah. So and it keeps going. I don't know if he'll be named to the under 18. We'll see when the U18s start. But yeah, he's definitely one to watch going forward. Right, mine is going to be Alexander Zetterberg, and that was written by Andrew Forbes on the 1st, so about a little over a week ago, and it was in April Fool's. He's a player that I've mentioned him because undersized, 5'8", 159. But the one thing, he's got tons of skill, and the thing that may hold him back is he doesn't have that same tenacity or work ethic or anything like a Connor Garland, Logan Stankoven type, which is why these guys succeed. But he's got just so much skill, and I don't know, his offensive package is why he's going to be, unfortunately, his size is going to push him to the second round. He won't be a first round pick, but he's just got so much skill with the puck. He's shifty. That's where the comparison of like a Connor Garland is. But the thing is about Garland, his work ethic is so high, and he's just so tenacious. So I mean, he can develop that, and with that shiftiness, but that's one knock on him that Andrew points out in the profile, is that his defensive skills aren't the best, so he's not that good defensively, which can be also something that'll get him with coaches that, yes, you have tons of skill and tons of offensive ability, but you're not good defensively, you're going to be benched. I mean, that's just unfortunate. Like Nikolai Goldobin's won just so much skill, but defensively just wasn't that good. So, I mean, these types of guys, if they can figure out the defensive game, and if Zetterberg can do that, he's going to be a heck of a player in the NHL. So, take a look at that profile. Andrew does a great job going through all, his full package of skills, but I'm excited to see him, because hopefully get in the second round, because I think he'll probably go in the second round. But it's just that knock on his defensive, and of course his size. That's just always going to be something to push these guys down. But he just has to develop that defensive game, and then who knows? He could be a pretty good player. All right. Before we move on, we're going to talk about the OHL playoffs and give out a couple of OHL awards. Before we do that, got to mention our Substack here at the Hockey Writers, and that we have a prospect draft Substack run by Dayton. You just released your rankings, plus was there something else? There was another article after that.
Yes, deep dive on Artem Levshunov.
That's right. So there's another deep dive to take a look at from Levshunov. We also got the prospect profile out on the site, but this one's a much deeper, longer piece than the profile. So yeah, some great stuff there. Take a look at that. I'll also take a look just at the Substack in general. We got, for all the NHL teams, also hockey history and news and rumors, lots of stuff over the Substack. So take a look in the link below. All right, we moving on to the OHL and the OHL end of season awards, since we haven't done those yet. Peter, I know you're well versed in the OHL, so we waited until you get back on the show for this one. I'll start with you. MVP for the OHL this season. This one's not as runaway as the WHL, because they had one guy that was definitely the MVP. Who is your MVP from the OHL this season?
I mean, when you look at the board, there are a lot of names that you could choose from. As much as I want to pick Easton Cowan because he was on that massive point streak towards the end of the season, I mean, he missed 14 games a season. If he would have played in those games, he would be up there with, David Goyette, Anthony Romani, Darren Wakely, who are over 100 points. And I think Cowan probably would have surpassed that. I think he would have hit the 100 points mark had he had those games. But, Maple Leafs camp, World Juniors, important milestones for him. But I am going to pick David Goyette of the Sudbury Wolves. You know, second round pick of the Seattle Kraken, late second round pick. I probably would have had him a little bit higher up as an early second. But he was just absolutely dominant from start to finish. I mean, there wasn't a game where he wasn't taking control of a shift, being a dominant factor with his creativity, playmaking, the vision. He just took everything by storm, and even it continued into the postseason right now. How like it just goes to show that he's taken massive steps with his production every single season. You know, 73 in his draft year, 92 last season, 117 this year. You saw the steps that he took. And I want to like there were very few games where he didn't register a point. And when he did, he came back with, long stretches of multi-point games. I mean, towards the end of the season, he had back-to-back games of over 5 points, or 11 in 3 games. The last game, he didn't have a point, but 6 against Barrie and 5 against Niagara before ended off with Oshawa. But I really was impressed with the way that he took massive steps. He just was lights out good with the against every team. I mean, it was absolutely phenomenal to watch him play. So he's going to get my MVP.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, Seattle's Jagger Furcus in WHL and Goyette in the OHL. So, the Seattle Kraken, geez, their prospect pool is pretty good for a young team. All right, Dayton, who's your MVP of the OHL this season?
Well, I went maybe a little off the board. I went with Carson Rakoff, who didn't finish with the top points, but he was second in goals. He had 52 goals. But I just thought that he had such a dominant season with the Kitchener Rangers. He was one of, if not the best player on that team. He worked really well with Hunter Brustowitz.
Brustowicz. It is. I had a hard time before too.
Yeah, it's a name that I look at and I just immediately forget every pronunciation that's ever been said to me. Never remember. Anyways, both of those guys really took off on Kitchener, but I feel like Carson Rakoff has really shown that he is a potential, underrated star in the NHL. Mm-hmm. He's so smart. He got a invite to Team Canada, which I don't think was expected at the beginning of the season. He was barely a point per game. Yeah, just under last season. And this season, he really took off. And that is another Seattle Kraken pick, I realize. He was a second round pick, though. So that's everyone else's fault for passing on him.
Yeah.
I was a big Rakoff truther, so
yeah.
Yeah.
So I think he's just the role that he played on his team made them a lot stronger than they normally would have been. And to me, that is an MVP. And it's not a clear-cut runaway winner with the OHL. So that's why I picked Rakoff.
Yeah, there's a few names like Denver Barkey could get it, but London just so many guys on their team that are really good. So I would probably give it to David Goyette as well. Like you said, Peter, he was just so good for Sudbury this season, and man, the Kraken. So well, our MVPs have gone through, and the Kraken have been all over it. So, they didn't make the playoffs this season, but they've got so many good young players that are coming up, and I think they're going to be fine. They got plenty, and Shane Wright is looking really good in the NHL right now, since he's been called up. Almost had his he had a 3-point game, I believe, in their last game. So yeah, hey, their team is going to be good for a while. with all these prospects, if they all hit, that is. All right, going to most improved player from last season to this season. I'll start with you, Dayton, on this one.
Sure. I went with Anthony Romani. Well, let me just pull up his stats here. So he last year scored 43 points, which is fine. He was a 17-year-old. He's just up for the draft this year. This year, he put up 111. That's huge, massive improvements. He went from 23 goals to 58, and he only played 2 more games with the North Bay Battalion. Like, that's just such a massive improvement from a 17-year-old season to an 18-year-old season. And yeah, I guess last season was his 18-year-old. He was eligible for the draft. So this was technically his draft +1. But that you don't expect to see that big of a jump. And I really hope someone takes a flyer on him in the 3rd round. I think that would be a perfect place to see him go. He's a smart quarterback type of winger or center. He kind of plays wherever he can. And I think there's some real interesting potential with this player. And I love to see guys just really break out like that.
Yeah, that's insane, going from 4 to 111, and second in the OHL in scoring. So only 6 points back of Goyette. So pretty good. Because the next one down from that is 104. So he had a great season. All right, Peter, did Dayton take yours, or you got another one?
Romani's a fantastic pick, by the way. Clearly from that jump of production.
Yeah.
I'm gonna have 2, but I'm gonna be very short with both. Jacob Oster, goaltender for the Oshawa Generals. In the most recent OHL polls, in the Eastern Conference, he was most voted as the most improved. And when you look at his numbers last season, 8 wins, 11 losses, 896, 23 games played. He was kind of in that backup role, but he took a massive step forward. 35 wins, .905 save percentage, and a .926 save percentage, and 194 goals against average in the postseason right now. So he's a big reason why the Generals went on that massive playoff push and is carried over into the postseason right now. And obviously, overager, 20 years old, you want to see that growth and development in his game. I thought he looked fantastic, and he's a reason why that he was able to take that big jump forward. So hopefully he's going to be on a lot of teams' radars. And the second one is Matthew Sopp from the Kitchener Rangers. Last season, 56 points. This season, 90. Then again, Kitchener Rangers have the depth with Rakoff, Brcevich, Philip Mesar. They got a lot of depth on that team. But Mesar, 52 points in 45 games. He dealt with some injuries. But for Sopp to be a 21-year-old or like in the final season of his OHL career and be a leader and very heavy, big-time producer, that's a big step forward. And I hope teams are going to come knocking on his door with a contract or, get an extension or get something, because he really showed that. And I believe he was one player that was at the Maple Leafs, development camps as well. So there's that. If he's able to take that, because he took that big step forward, 6 feet, 183, big energy, great shot, and great release. Underrated playmaker as well. I think there's going to be a lot of suitors coming to him.
Yeah, the CHL free agency is going too. So, I mean, there's going to be a few of these guys getting signed by NHL teams fairly soon. I know there's a few that have already signed entry-level deals. I don't know about free agents too much, but for drafted players. Mine is a former Canucks prospect, unfortunately former Canucks prospect now, and mentioned his name a couple times already, Hunter Brcevich. He went from 57 points to 92 this season, 6 goals to 13, 51 assists to 79 assists. So, that's a pretty big jump for a defenseman. And there was a time where it looked like he was going to eclipse 100 points and beat the record of Ryan Ellis and all that stuff, but it kind of slowed down towards the end of the season, but still a phenomenal season, 92 points. a plus 31. Yeah, I mean, the Kitchener Rangers are a ridiculously good team. We mentioned Carson Raykoff. They're really good. But Brstevich has, exceeded, I think, everyone's expectations of what he was going to do in his draft +1 season. And the Canucks parlayed that into making him part of a big package to trade for Elias Lindholm. And that was the reason of why, because he increased his stock so much that the Calgary Flames thought he was a big time prospect, and not saying he's not, because he is. And he's looking like he's going to be pretty good. And the Calgary Flames didn't take very long to sign him, because they signed him to an entry-level deal, I think a few weeks ago. So along with Yoni Yermo. So they apparently like the two defensemen that they got from the Canucks, who've already signed him to their ELCs. So yeah, Brstevich is my most improved, and yeah, well deserved on that one. All right, last one, top player to watch for the 2024 draft. Now, there's plenty to choose from this one, because there's a lot of OHL players that could be drafted in this coming draft. So start with you, Peter. Who's your one to watch, a top player to watch coming up?
See, I want to take the easy route, because all the talk is around Sam Dickinson, Zane Parekh, Liam Greentree. All those guys are going to be hearing their name early. Like a lot of those names are going to be top 15 for me. I'm going to highlight like names like late first, early second to mid second. I really don't think that this player is getting enough talk than he should, and that's Jet Lachenko from the Guelph Storm. I wrote his profile. Tested very well at the before the top prospects game. Had the best in that coaches poll. He was named one of the smartest players and hardest working players. As a result of that, teams love that mentality. They love the smarts. They love the work ethic. This is a player that has that. Obviously, needs to get a little bit stronger. Needs to get add a little bit more muscle, because he can't get pushed off easily. But he is relentless. He stays on the plays, and he has that mindset. And considering that the Guelph Storm really were in a tight spot with Matthew Poitras making the jump to the NHL, you needed someone to take that step forward. Lachenko delivered in a big way. He had 74 points this season, if I'm not mistaken. I'm just going to double check that just to make sure. 74 points in 68 games. So he was able to deliver big time. I believe he's going to be on the right path to develop properly in the future. And because of his ability to be a hardworking two-way center, definitely a lot of middle six upside. Second line, best case scenario is going to be third line energy type of player. He needs to get a lot more attention, because he definitely has all the tool sets or all the skill or all the tools that can make him a very dangerous player.
Yeah, maybe I should have made this the top underrated player to watch, or one that's not being talked about a lot. But whatever we want to go to with that. Dayton, who is your player to watch? Maybe not top player to watch. We'll say player to watch for the 2024 draft. Fair.
I'm always going to keep an eye on Luke Misa. Again, fantastic skater. He's all the things I said about Michael Hage apply to Misa and a little bit more. To me, he's just that little bit better. Really explosive speed. He's got a fast, long stride, like really efficient. Slips through defenders, kind of like Berkeley Catton. I don't know. He's not quite at Berkeley Catton's level. Like Catton could be the third overall pick. But Misa's really interesting. I'm also going to watch where Zane Parekh ends up, because as you mentioned, Peter, he should be a top 15. There's just some really big concerns I have about part of his game. Like his shot, amazing. The dude shoots like Shea Weber. Like he's just got a cannon from the point, and he gets it off like really, really quickly. I've never seen a defenseman shoot kind of like how he does, but he just gets so much power behind it, and it stays really low, and it beats goalies really easily. Really, really good shot. His skating, it's fine. I didn't have too many complaints, but it didn't jump out. His defense is practically non-existent. Is what I saw when I watched some of his clips. He's not engaged in the defensive side of the game. And at least that's my scouting takeaway. And you can come at me in the comments. Yeah, whatever. But I just wonder if someone will jump on Parekh in a really high pick, despite some of the problems that they'll have to develop and work out, or if he'll start to slip a little bit because there are those concerns. And so that's one reason I am going to watch him really close. I think his high-end potential makes him a top 15, top 10 pick, but we'll see.
Yeah, he is one of those. I think he definitely will be drafted around there because, like I say, I've said this many times. Offense, you can't really teach that innate ability. Defense, you can. You can. I mean, you'd hope you can. I mean, some players, you try to teach them, they just never get it, and then they're out of the league. But I choose to believe, just looking at Quinn Hughes' development, because that was a knock on him. All offense, his defense, not that good. He's learned how to defend with his skill set. And mostly it's because he defends by just having the puck and just moving it really quick. And his skating really helps with that too. His body position, a big part of it too. And just getting the right coaching. I think Adam Foote's really helped him over the last since he's come to the team. And so, I mean, I think it can be taught. I think Parekh has that ability to be taught. But we'll see. We'll see but his offense, I think you draft him because of that.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think he's got the ability to become someone really, really special. And that's why I'm going to be watching very, very closely. I think really, really curious to see how he goes in the draft. Because it's not like he can't defend. He's just very disengaged. So I wonder about that work ethic, right?
Right.
He's not someone like Carter Yakimchuk, who I would place lower as somebody who doesn't have I'm trying not to sound mean. He just doesn't have quite the intelligence to make those right decisions. I really question Yakimchuk's decision-making, even though he still has that high offensive ceiling. So Yakimchuk, I'd be more scared to draft, and Parekh, I'd be more interested to draft, if that makes sense.
There you go. Yeah, that's gonna be definitely a talking point throughout as we get closer to it. All right, moving on to the OHL playoffs, which have been gone through a first round already. We're into the second round. Well, not yet. There's one more series to end, but we're pretty close. It's the Kitchener Rangers and the Erie Otters. Kitchener's up 3-2 as we're recording this. Their game's on Tuesday, which is when we're recording. So this series may be over by the time you're watching this. So
actually, there is an update. It is 2-1 Kitchener.
All right. Well, Kitchener could be the one moving on this one. I mean, it's close. We'll see. Game 7 will go on Wednesday. So by the time, this will all be done by the time we record next. So that's the only series that's going on. The rest of them have already, they're moving on to the second round. A lot of, there's no upsets. There's a few sweeps. The Greyhounds swept the Storm. Saginaw Spirit swept the Owen Sound Attack. London Knights, Flint Firebirds, they swept. The only series that went, there's a couple series that went to 6 games, but no game 7s. And this one may not either. So in the first round, and so far, well, now that it's almost over, we'll say the first round. Dayton, who has impressed you the most over this first round of OHL playoffs?
The Sioux Greyhounds, I didn't expect to be the force that they are. So they swept the Guelph Storm. Didn't see that coming. And so I think the guy who impressed me the most is Bryce McConnell Barker, who is leading the team in points after putting up 51 points in 52 games this season. Like that's a big jump. That's surprising. He ranks 7th in OHL playoff scoring, technically tied for 4th. There's a whole bunch of guys at 8 points right now, but it only took him 4 games to get there. I think the thing that kind of held him back was the Greyhounds seem to be a very defensive team. Speaking as someone who hasn't been able to watch them since I live in Saskatchewan, but they've got a lot of really good defensemen. Artu Karki, Andrew Gibson, those guys are solid defensive players. Gavin Hayes, he's a little bit more on the defensive side, but he also wasn't around for a good chunk of the season. Because was he a trade? Yeah, he came from Flint. Yeah. So, yeah, he's a very smart winger. So that's a big help. But no, I think McConnell Barker's really broken out. He's was a 3rd round pick of the Rangers. And yeah, good for him. He's was a big reason why they were able to get by Guelph so easily.
I'll throw in, since you're talking about the Greyhounds, that Kirill Kudryavtsev has really impressed me in that series too. He has 5 points so far, and in the 4 games, 5 points in 4 games, a goal in there. And he was really good throughout the season. Went on a little bit of a point drought for a bit after starting the season off pretty hot. Of course, Canucks prospect. That's why I watch these guys. And
yeah, that's why I left him for it. It's a Canucks prospect, not because I was afraid of pronouncing his name wrong.
I have to make all these guys. Kudryavtsev's the only defenseman now that I'm watching the OHL, now that Berstevich is not a Canucks prospect anymore. But Kudryavtsev's really impressed me so far in the playoffs, and he beat a team that had another Canucks prospect on it, Vilmer Ulriksson, who was on the Guelph Storm. And so Canucks prospect is going to move on regardless in that series. So Kudryavtsev was the one. Right, Peter, what about you? Who has impressed you so far in the playoffs right now?
I mean, basically the most impressive thing is the teams that were supposed to dominate were dominant. I understand, like, I'm trying to put this lightly. London was supposed to win against Flint. They swept them. Yeah. Saginaw swept it Owen Sound. Sioux Greyhounds, they were the 3rd seeded team. So, they ranked 3rd. So the expectation is, they were going to win. But, I probably expected a little bit more of a push from the Guelph Storm, which was a little bit disappointing because, Jetlachenko, big fan of his. But then again, when you're kind of the lower seed, you're on the outside looking in. So, the teams that dominated were dominant. I think that was the big thing for me. Even when you look to the other side, Brampton it wasn't a sweep, but I don't know why I said Brampton Battalion. North Bay Battalion. So thinking back in the past, geez. North Bay won. Ottawa 67s won. Oshawa Generals. That was a very entertaining series to watch because that had a lot of everything. I think that was the most impressive series to date. It was a 6-game series, but it was very, very, intense. And, we saw suspensions. We saw suspension and OT winner from Beckett Seneca, who I'm also very high on heading into this draft. But then again, Jacob Oster, he looked very solid in net to help secure the victory and the series win for them. So that's my big takeaway from basically that, because all the teams that were supposed to be dominant, you didn't see a whole lot of upsets in this series, or not series, but in this postseason.
Yeah, the only one that really, the Sudbury Wolves were the lower seed over the Mississauga Steelheads, but that was what was that, a 4-5 matchup? So, really, that's not a huge thing. Same thing, like the 67s went 4-2, it was a 3-6. So, I guess you could call that an upset. Looking at the standings and where they were. That was a high scoring series though. A lot of goals. Overall seems to be pretty expected of how it's all gone. Kitchener, at this point, they're leading the game, so it looks like they're going to win. But we'll see. All right, let's do some predictions for the second round, since we do have some matchups here. We got the Oshawa Generals and the Ottawa 67s, North Bay Battalion, the Sudbury Wolves, and the Saginaw Spirit and the Sioux Greyhounds. then the winner of the one that's not done yet will play the London Knights. So I'll start with you, Peter. Predictions for the Generals and the 67s. Who is coming out of that one?
Oh, that's going to be a very intriguing one because 60 obviously the Generals, they're the top seeded team in that Eastern Conference. Expectation is that they're going to win, but the Ottawa 67s know how to grind it out. They got a lot of great talent on that team. Um, Braden Kressler, he's been underrated for them since coming over. Luca Pinelli, um, they Jacob Mallet, they got a lot of, and I believe like a lot of the players that they have too, they got a lot of veteran presence or like great veterans on that team that can, really carry forward and be a big part of why they could go far. And even on the back end too, you look at names like Henry Muse, you got Frankie Morelli that kind of lead this defensive unit. I'm still thinking that, Oshawa is going to come out on top just because of the depth that they have throughout. And plus, the stellar goaltending from Oster. So I that's going to be my pick for that series.
All right. What about you, Dayton? Who's coming out of that one?
Yeah, that's a good question. I think I'm also going to go with Oshawa. I didn't expect them to struggle as much as they did early on against the Barrie Colts. Barrie did have more experience than them, which helped them win 2 games. But Oshawa was just the better team, and that was the deciding factor. So I think, once again, that will be what gets them by. I mean, you got Callum Ritchie, you got Rasmus Kumpalainen. Like, those are really talented players. Jacob Oster, like you've mentioned, he's doing really well in the playoffs so far. And Ottawa's goalie isn't quite as strong. Colin McKenzie only got a 902 save percentage, a 310 goals against average. So they'll have a long way to kind of make up that ground. They have the talent to do it. Henry Muse, Brady Stonehouse, Luca Pinelli, like you mentioned, those are all really, really good players, good junior players. But no, I don't. Anyways, there's just they just got too much.
I think I agree with that. I mean, the 67s did pull off taking down a higher seed in the first round. So I mean, they could do it, but the Generals have been just so strong throughout all season, and I think they have the stronger team too. So I'm going to go with the Generals, but it won't be a sweep. I think that's going to be a 5-6 game series. I think the 67s will win 1 or 2 games. All right, North Bay and Sudbury. And Dayton, I'll start with you. Who do you think comes out of that one?
North Bay's offense have been incredibly potent. We already mentioned Anthony Romani, right? He is practically unstoppable.
Yeah.
So that is already going to be a difficult player to handle. Against Sudbury, you've got another very difficult player to handle, David Goyette.
Yeah.
who we've voted as the MVP, along with Quentin Musty, Matthew Mania, Dalibor Dvorsky. That's probably more than I think North Bay could handle. I know North Bay is the higher ranked, right?
Yeah, it's 2-5. Yeah.
2-5, yeah. But I think I'm going to go with the Sudbury Wolves on this one. Like, they're just kind of clicking on all cylinders, and that's what you want at playoff time. And if you get on kind of a roll, as Sudbury kind of has, they only lost 1 game against Mississauga. Granted, North Bay did as well, but Sudbury was the lower ranked team. So I'm thinking this is also going to go probably 6 games, but I'm going to pick Sudbury for this one.
All right. An upset, according to the standings. Peter, who you going with that one?
Yeah, I agree. All the same reasons for what Dayton said, but also mainly just because of that depth. I really do like Coach Adelik. I like Alex Ferrand. Evan Konyan as well. I think that they have the bottom six depth that can be very capable, or middle six depth that could really have like a massive, tremendous impact. So I'm going to pick Sudbury.
Mm-hmm. I like Sudbury too. I think they have so much talent and depth, like you both said. And I mean, North Bay, yes, they have a lot of good players too, but I think this is going a long series. I think this goes 6 or 7 though, because it's going to be tough. All right, last, because the other one's not really set. So we'll go Saginaw and Sioux Greyhounds. Saginaw Spirit, Sioux Greyhounds, the last one here. Peter, who you got going that one?
Again, it's kind of tough because both teams swept, but
yeah,
with the firepower that Saginaw has, up front, and even with Zane Parekh on the back end, also not just doing this because they are also the host for the Memorial Cup, but I do think that they have the firepower and offense that could just be a little bit too much to handle for the Greyhounds. But then again, they're a top 3 team, so it could be a little bit closer than what you expect. So I'm probably going to think that this will probably go 6 or 7. So Saginaw, but with the edge that it's going to be very, very close.
Dayton, who you got going through there?
I'm a big Saginaw believer. I think they did everything right for the trade deadline. Like, they bought heavy, bringing in all the guys that you want. They added Owen Beck, Jorian Donovan, Rodwin Denizio, and then they already had Michael Misa, Zane Parekh, and Matya Sapovalev. Like, what else do you want? That's the team to do it, right?
Yeah.
That's how you win in juniors. You just load up and then you go all the way. So I would pick them to show up in the final. I think the Sioux Greyhounds have been really good so far. I mentioned them a little bit earlier. They're a smart defensive team. But I don't know if you can get past Saginaw at this point.
They're pretty good.
The only question I had was the goalie, Andrew Oak. Or is it Okie? I assumed Oak.
I think it's Oak.
Okay. We'll go with it.
We'll go with that.
But he's been rock solid in that. Like, he's one of the best goalies in the OHL right now. 928 save percentage, only a 2 goals against in 4 games. Like, and he's facing shots. So I think Saginaw's got it. I'd go 5 games, I think.
I think this one's I think I'm gonna go the longer side but I think 6 for this one. We'll see. I want Kudryavtsev to stay in as long as possible, so I'm gonna go with that. All right, that's our predictions for this second round, and London Knights or the Erie Otters or the Kitchener Rangers are going to be in the next round too. So we'll
I'll
talk
make my
about
predictions now. It's London.
It's London, I think, for either of those two. I think so too. So there you go. We did our predictions for that one too. All right, prospect of the week. I'll start with Jonathan Lekaramaki because he is in the AHL now with the Abbotsford Canucks. He's doing really well. He has a goal. He scored his first AHL goal a couple games ago. In the only goal in the game that was a overtime loss to the Coachella Valley Firebirds. Then they got blown out the next day, 7-2. And guess what? I was at that game. So much fun. I was like, oh, I didn't go to the game that he scores his first goal. I go to the game that got blown out, and Lekaramaki was basically non-existent in the game. So, of course, I picked that game. Well, Lekaramaki doing pretty well in the AHL. He's looked dangerous. He's improved over his time he's been. His goal was a vintage wrist shot that he's developed over in the SHL. Exciting because he's already starting to improve, and he's only played a few games and probably heading to the World Championship after it. So great to get some experience in the AHL beforehand. And even though he didn't score, I saw him play. So even though he didn't do anything. All right, Peter, who's your prospect of the week?
I'm going to be very quick because we don't need an introduction to him or something long, but it's going to be TJ Ginla, Kelowna Rockets, 4 games, 5 goals, 8 points, second in WHL scoring. with 11 points, just absolutely dominant. So the goal scoring tear that he was on during the regular season has carried into the postseason, and he's been coming up clutch at certain points for the Kelowna Rockets, which led them to their 4-2 series win against Wenatchee Wild. I believe it was them. Yeah. So yeah, he was a big reason why they secured that victory, and already just dominating. So he's my prospect of the week.
Yeah, TJ Gendla's he's really increasing his stock for sure. Yeah. All right, Dayton, finish us off. We are running out of time, so
I'll be quick. I also went to a game last week. I saw the Blades take on the Prince Albert Raiders, Saskatoon Blades, if you didn't watch anything before this. And they won, and it was great. But a big reason why Prince Albert was even in the game in the first place was Ryder Ritchie, who's going to be my prospect of the week. He had 7 points in 5 games, 2 points in the first game, which the Raiders won, which was a big surprise. And I think he's finally starting to show why he should be a first-round pick. He was the main driving force behind the Raiders in the postseason, and he really looked like he's a hard worker. He's a smart player. There's a few inconsistencies about his game, but from what I've seen previously compared to what I saw now, those are not as prevalent. And I really liked how involved he was in all of the plays. Only put up an assist in that last game I watched, but yeah, he's got something there, and he'll almost certainly be a first-round pick.
I agree. I think he's going to be probably mid first round. I think so. Yeah, he'll be one to watch. All right. Thanks, Peter. Thanks, Dayton, for coming on the show again and talking prospects. Hopefully we have we will have more OHL stuff and action and WHL next week to talk about. And we're going to go over, Dayton, your rankings for the Substack and give a little bit of a sneak preview for what you guys can read on the Substack as we go. So we're going to pick apart, but do the same thing we've done over our other rankings. So stay tuned for that. Make sure to check out all of our articles at hockeywriters.com and all the profiles as well. But until next time, we'll see you on another episode of Prospect Corner.